Hello again, my friends, and welcome back. It is me, Carpo, and I would like to share a few thoughts with you if you have the time. And I'm hoping, as usual, that just like every other time I make a video, my intention is never to ruffle feathers or to push buttons or to divide or to make people angry. It is the ultimate goal of everything I do to try to help people understand each other. I'm not saying I do a good job at it. I'm sure I definitely don't. But my intentions are pure and I care about people. And it's very hard to navigate a world where people don't seem to care about other people, but you know deep down inside that they do. That even, the biggest disagreements can often be overlooked in the right situation. So I wanted to start off with a little bit of a metaphor to make an example here. I was going to use somebody's preference in movie styles, and then about 30 seconds ago, before I started the video, I decided to do it with food. And I thought, this is why I need a better structure to my topics. But at the same time, it leaves me to free flow think, and I'll just stick with the movies because that one will be easier for me here. So let's imagine that you're a big sci-fi buff, right? You love sci-fi movies. You you get satisfaction from watching movies that have to do with technology or maybe aliens, just things that are kind of out of the ordinary, right? And you encounter another person, and this is of course everybody likes many different styles of movies, but this is just a kind of a rudimentary example. You meet a person that you get to talking to, and you start talking about movies, and they say they like romantic comedies, right? Now, you might also like rom-coms, and they might also like sci-fi. But in this particular case, both of you only watch that style of movie. Now, this would be a minor disagreement, right? But it could become extremely uncomfortable if one person started telling the other, well, you really should like rom-coms because they're the better movie. And of course, you could write that off as like, well, that's personal preference. Everybody has their own version. And they'd say, but rom-coms actually are funnier and they make you feel better. And they'll say, but I get a certain amount of great feeling off of what I watch. And you get where I'm going with this, hopefully. But what if the person said, well, if you watch the movies that you like, it makes you a bad person and you are going to burn eternally in hellfire for it. I guess I just kind of jumped right to it, didn't I? That's the point. Now, I was having a discussion earlier with my wife, actually, and we were talking about religion, and I was kind of trying to go into the difference of why Christians claim to be persecuted, for example. And I thought about how very unpersecuted the Christians really are. I mean, they've got tax exempt status, they've got these huge churches. I mean, it's not really, most people aren't too concerned with what Christians are doing with their time because Christianity is a religion. Many people in this country and many of the, early adopters of this country, if you will, were Christians. That's absolutely true, but not all. But it is a dominating, theme across the U.S. But those of us who are not Christians are okay with people being Christians. And this idea that Christianity is under attack is why I'm using, I guess, the movie example. It doesn't matter if you choose romantic comedies. It doesn't matter if you choose sci-fi. It doesn't matter if you like watching sports instead. What matters is what works for you. And if you've found a system that works for you in this crazy thing we call life, and you find a niche or a religion, then so be it. I have changed my viewpoint on religion a lot over the years because I used to be very opposed to religion to the point where I just kind of laughed it off. I recall throwing a Gideon's Bible out of a motel window in Seattle all the way down several stories to the highway below. I was just a stubborn youth, right? I was in my early 20s. I had been persecuted personally by all of the Christians that I'd met in my life. I didn't know very many, but I had been ridiculed and chastised, told I was going to hell for even the clothes I was wearing at one time because I was kind of a long-haired hippie dude. It put a nasty taste in my mouth as a guy that was not raised with a religion, okay? A guy who grew up with a mom and dad who didn't practice any particular religion. On my dad's dog tags from Vietnam, it says LDS. And my mom had told me that when they asked him what religion he was, he just said Latter-day Saints, Mormon, basically, because his parents had briefly delved into Mormonism at that time. And so he's like, I'll just use that. And it's just funny how circumstantial something can be, or uncircumstantial. That whatever a person believes is their salvation, I have respect for. When the Mormons used to come to my house when I was younger, I would just, find a way to brush them off. Same with the Jehovah's Witnesses. Or maybe even, kind of say something rude, right? Or question their beliefs. That was pretty rude of me, and I was immature and young. These days, I invite them in. I'll invite the Mormons in, and I've had long chats with them. They're usually very interesting fellows. It's usually the two young guys on bicycles with their ties and their backpacks. And they're usually pretty well educated. They've just been indoctrinated and brainwashed. And the fact that I'm telling you that I believe Mormons have been brainwashed doesn't mean that I disregard their belief system, because I actually think their family unit and their family value system is top notch compared to other systems, out there. And I'm not talking about the FLDS. I'm well aware of the fundamentalists out there who have several wives. We're not talking about that. The average Mormon, the main Mormon church, denounces multiple wives. It's not something all Mormons do, but it doesn't matter. Mormons are weird. They believe weird shit, and I respect them for it because they do their own thing. They take care of each other. They don't sit and grovel and complain about other religions. They do their own thing. They went to Utah, and they've been doing it ever since, and that to me is pretty commendable. But there are different sects that have divided out from the church. The same with Christianity. So I thought about this on the movie metaphor. Even if that person got everyone in the world to love rom-coms, all of a sudden people would start dividing themselves about which actor, right, should portray the lead, or what kind of film quality it should be. Or you see what I'm getting at is, no matter how much people agree on shit, we just naturally have this tendency to want to fucking divide on the dumbest shit. It's just what we do. We're human. I don't understand it, but I've been watching it my whole life. And the older I get, the more I realize how little I really know about people. And that's good. That's good. That's how it should be. We are ignorant of many things. But I thought about the idea of Christian, as I was saying earlier, Christian persecution. The reason that's so fascinating to me is because people also claim that Christianity is growing at some great rate in this country, which technically it's just a lot of podcasters are going Christian. They're talking about these things. It's just become kind of a pop thing. Like, you don't become a Christian overnight unless you're desperately seeking and you decide, this is what I want to believe now, so be it. That's fine. But for most people, it's something that they gradually grow to learn. And this idea of being born again, to me, it's wonderful that people can find that truth, but oh my God, they are so insufferable. The people who have just found religion, and dude, look, I can back up several months even. I had some very amazing experiences, and my connection with the divine was so strong. I've never felt anything like it, because I'm not an atheist. I'm just not religious. I don't follow another man's version of God. I believe each man is born with the innate ability to figure this shit out for themselves, okay? And if you don't let your channel get, completely, if you don't let yourself get distracted by everybody else's opinions, You can feel God fucking right down to your bones. God is everything and everywhere. It's not what people make it out to be. It's not even a he or a she or an it. It is everything. It is not pantheism, but it's not atheism. It's the realization that everything is constantly in flux and moving, and that this crazy thing we call life is nothing more than a dream, but it's all we know. And so we're fighting damn hard to try to get some semblance of normalcy in it, to figure out what is this all about and why am I here, right? And for a lot of people, they settle on something when they're young and they stick with it. This is what I believe because this is what I was taught, and I refuse to look outside it. And as I was having that conversation, she had mentioned Buddhism not being under attack, and it got me thinking about why these other religions generally aren't made fun of as much, which they are, of course. Christians make fun of every other religion, like incessantly, but and Islam's been under attack from the beginning, but Buddhism isn't under attack because it's never attacked anyone. The discussion I was having was about whether this was a Christian nation, and I do not believe the United States is a Christian nation, and I know that's a controversial viewpoint for anyone who believes, in, I guess, well, it would be Christian nationalism. If we believe this is a Christian nation, then that's Christian nationalism. It's pretty simple. But it's not something that I feel in my heart is best for everyone. So, and look, we have an experiment here in this country. It's very fragile at this point. And I've looked at the statistics of, people over the years. I've been fascinated with who believes what for decades, I don't know how much to trust, what I read or what statistics there are, but let's just say you have to collect a wide variety of different, is that my dog? That was weird. I just saw a dog walk by that looked like mine. So trippy. It was a husky. Well, now I gotta find out. Whew. Okay, now I'm burnt. Okay, I got distracted for a minute there, but I'm gonna leave it because I don't edit, as you know. I just paused my phone. Got my weed whacker here. I had to run down there. We have 3 acres on this property, and I'm sitting on this bench. It's halfway down the hill. It's like my meditation. I consider it my universal connection bench here, and video bench. And down on the train tracks right there, they're non-used tracks, but I just saw this like husky running along, or it looked like a husky, a Spitz, But my dog is usually, she doesn't leave the, yard. We have 3 fenced acres, but there's one area in the fence where I cut the fence to make a gate, but I have it kind of tied up, and I thought maybe she ran out. Hopefully it wasn't her. Could have been, though. Anyway, she's back now. Aren't you, Lucy? Somewhere out there. Let's hope she's sticking around. So, whew, all right, I'm back in action now. Where was I? Hi, girl. I'll show you. Here she is. What's up, baby? What's up, girl? Were you down on the tracks? I hope not. She just loves it out here. She's in full-blown God's country out here, man. She doesn't have to sit there in a crappy small yard anymore. Do you, baby? You want to say hi, Luce? Hey, Luce, come here. Hey, you say hi to the people. They love you. If anything, there's a reason that dog is God spelled backwards. So to get to my point here, from a young age, I've been fascinated with religion and comparative religion. I've studied as much as, humanly possible for me as a human, rather. Of I've realized that the more you learn about religion and religious beliefs, the more you just realize it doesn't matter, Because if you have to study something to believe it and understand it, I've come to the conclusion that it's not worth it. And I'll explain what I mean there, because, it would be nice to believe that some humans that came before us have actually written down all these canons and stories that really grasp what God wants and who God is. And I just don't buy it. I haven't bought it. And the reason being is because within Christianity itself, there are so many divided lines. Out here, we've got a lot of Lutherans. Martin Luther kind of rebelled against the Catholic Church, and so Catholics hate Lutherans, right? But they all believe in Christ, and it's just the silliest thing to me. Like, you literally believe in the same Savior, right? The same dude. One dude out of billions of people for thousands of years. You all believe in one dude that's the same Savior, and you're just arguing over the fucking details? It's like, grow the fuck up. I mean, this is the silliest shit I've ever heard in my life. And the more I learn, the more ridiculous it sounds. So instead of learning about religion and having it bring me closer to believing in a religion, it pushes me further away, but gets me closer to my version of what God is, and gives me more confidence in my version of God, which is a very chaotic, a very chaotic God, a very polar. It all comes down to polarity. Everything has an opposite. Every action has a reaction. Every color, every sound, every idea, every time in history echoes in some form in a completely different way. And you call them synchronicities, call them what you want. Carl Jung was definitely onto something that you can tap into in your subconscious, where you start to understand this shit is way too deep for people. That anybody who's trying to write out a map on how to live or what's important, I mean, you can only do so much. It's kind of like religion claiming to have the authority on morality. And I heard this earlier, I don't recall what I was listening to, but somebody was talking about how they'd talked to a Christian who said, well, if it wasn't for the Bible and Christianity, then how would people know how to act? Why wouldn't, what keeps us to go around from raping and killing people? And I've heard this argument not just once or twice, but dozens of times from Christians. And I've thought about it. And the more I understand about humans and psychology, the more I think this is projection, in the sense of, is this person really telling me that if it weren't for their beliefs, these are things that they might do? Because that's very possible. And very possible that religion keeps psychopaths from, or keeps people from becoming psychopaths who might tend towards it. That's a possibility. I don't know. But I would say that it's a very simple question. Religion didn't create morality. Religion wrote down the first canons that had to deal with the morality that we already instinctually knew as humans, that we've carried with us since, we figured out how to not beat your spouse to death and kill your babies. Like, you're not going to carry on your genes that way. To not steal food from the tribe because everyone else will die out. This kind of shit. Like, we learned pretty early on how to be a good person, because if we don't, nature kicks our ass. And here's the irony, and the part that really just gets me. All these things that I learned about the humility of religion, the meek shall inherit the earth, to take care of the weakest in our communities, all the things that Jesus taught have been completely abandoned for a mega church and some screaming pastor, or maybe some dude with a red hat who isn't even a Christian. Christianity sold out to the highest bidder. they sold out to the loudest mouth, and they have sold out so many of their church. I'm not talking about Christians in general. This isn't an attack on Christianity. It's an attack on those who support these corrupt people. Like, I there's this one particular guy, this pastor. I don't even think you'd call him a pastor. I mean, I'm well aware of Joel Osteen. When I grew up, it was like Jim and Tammy Faye Baker saying, plant that seed. They're standing up there on national television telling people, if you are a real Christian, you'll send us money, and that money will come back to you somehow. Meanwhile, they're flying around in these jets. And Kenneth Copeland, who, I guess this would be the kind of pinnacle of the discussion. Really, I didn't intend to talk about him, but if you look at the video of Kenneth Copeland being interviewed by some media girl, I don't know who she was, or which station it was, but the way he talked to her as he was getting into his jet, he's like, "Don't you dare accuse me." Like, it was this moment in time where, if you watch the clip, and I've seen it dozens of times because I've seen it in so many places, if I've seen a lot of people say a lot of things live, in person, and on video, and I've never seen anybody look more like a literal demon, okay? And this is important. It sounds, off track, like I'm just harassing this guy. No, this guy, Kenneth Copeland, who claims to be that God has him in God's favor and that he's there to do God's work, when he was confronted about why he needs 2 multi-million-dollar jets, and why he's more wealthy than you could even imagine, and why so many of the people say that they're poor and they're broke, and he just says, send more money into me. These are the guys who are claiming to be the top Christians, and there are millions of people who follow them. These are the people who need to have their heads checked. These are the folks who need to learn, who need to be brought out of this cult mentality. Because here's the thing, following Kenneth Copeland or Joel Osteen or any politician, there's no difference in it. It's cult mentality. It's following an individual, thinking that they know what's best for you. And we find out that's never true. Jesus taught humility. Jesus taught to protect those who are less fortunate. Jesus flipped over the tables when he found people committing usury. Oh, but it's okay for us in the modern day because times have changed and we can use certain quotes and passages to our, whatever works for us. And, too bad for the rest of the people. I don't believe that God has a favorite group. And this is the part of it that really gets to me. And I know I've spent a lot of time, of course, using Christians as the example. But don't think that Zionists get away with this. Zionists aren't even Jews, and I have a huge problem with the idea that anybody thinks that they are God's chosen people. If you think that only believers of a certain faith are the only ones that will, go to some great heaven and that everyone else will suffer, then you have a mental illness, as far as I'm concerned, because it's causing you to see other humans as less than you or less worthy than you because they think differently. But the funny thing is, even if it's correct, I would rather, I guess if I go to hell because I believe differently about God, I'd be in a good company rather than spending time with these, corrupt losers, politicians who claim to be Christians. And if these are the kind of people that get to heaven, if that's what heaven is a place for folks who, can commit sin and lie and cheat and steal to get ahead, which, I'd rather be humble and poor, I really would, than to hang on to the idea that I cheated somebody. I never want to rip somebody off. It's just wrong. It's a very simple concept, but the entirety of capitalism is based on lies. Lying to get ahead, lying to get your product out on the shelf. I know that's not the way it has to be, but it's the way it is. We can't deny that. And the same way Christianity is sold to so many people as a cure-all, but, all you've got to do is buy this custom Bible, right? Metaphoric, I guess, but I have no intention of seeing religion disappear or no hope for it. I would rather see a communal belief that all religions are somewhat correct in their own way, as long as they're practiced honestly. And this goes back to what I said about Buddhism. The reason Buddhism is never, nobody says, why is Buddhism never harassed or attacked? Well, it has been. Hell, why do you think they're in Tibet? You know, monks, Chinese military went up there and slaughtered monks, and they didn't do anything. They tried passivity. They didn't even stand up for themselves. They've had all kinds of problems. They mind their own business. They went to their own place, and they, you know, but the thing is, they don't go and push their views on other people. I've never once seen a Buddhist monk come and say we need to put, you know, put these teachings in schools, right? For like Western schools. But that goes back to the argument that we're a Christian nation, which we're not. And that's my belief anyway. And I think we need to look past beliefs and start looking at, I'm not talking about actions so much as attitude. Because sometimes doing the right thing is just doing nothing. And what I mean by that is not taking advantage of somebody else to get ahead, not lying about somebody, or making up a story, or getting angry, or punishing someone else because you're angry about something, which is just become such a commonplace in this society. We air our grievances with rifles, right? I mean, that's what's happening to my country, and it's becoming very difficult for a lot of people. And fortunately, we can choose to bury our heads in the sand if we want. But ultimately, I just want to see something come out of this country where it's a better place for everybody. So, and for the world. So I'll see you all on the flip side. I salute you all and wish you all the best. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And like, just, I apologize if this came off on an attack on Christianity. It's not at all. As I said, it's an attack on Christians imposing their views on others and claiming they're the only one. You know, from a long time ago in my youth, I believed that, you know, telling people they're going to hell from a young age, you know, is like child abuse. You know, it's like this fear. Like, we don't have enough fears already in life that we have to worry about burning in hellfire. And not all people believe this, of course, but, you know, it's just, it's something that I feel when I was younger that religion was something that needed to be abolished. Now it's just something that needs to be honed. You know, that's how I feel. Something we need to adjust to work for everybody. Because atheists that I've met are pretty fucking miserable people most of the time. So anyway, I wish you well, and I commend you all for sticking around this long for my ramble, and I should go now. I'll talk to you all in the next time, and for what it's worth, it's all here. It's all here. God is here, all around us, all the time. Peace out.